Alan asked us to come and talk about the history and evolution of Indian singing, that was pan-Indian singing in Los Angeles, kind of its history. So that particular song is one you'd hear at powwows sung today.
Gotta slow down, Craig.
Yeah, okay.
You're kind of panting there a little bit.
All right. So that song was made by John Dawson here, and also was Norman involved?
Norm, yeah.
Norman Williams.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of song that you'd hear in Los Angeles for quite a long time. And actually, we're going to talk a little bit about those early years. Maybe do a little introduction. You want to introduce yourself?
Sure.
We'll go around.
Larry Smith from Lumbee Nation.
Look over there.
Larry Smith.
I'm going to say Larry has a radio program with some other people. It's called American Indian Airwaves, and he works in education. And one of his papers, his master's thesis, was based upon looking at Los Angeles Indians' migration to Los Angeles early on. So I'm going to have a little talk about that. Early on, was this kind of singing? Did you hear this kind of singing back then?
Well, in terms of indigenous migration to Los Angeles, I had actually started with the Buffalo Bill shows and the Buffalo Ranch 101 Wonders up in San Fernando Valley. And what happened was a lot of the film studios at the time in Los Angeles worked with Buffalo, some of the Wild West shows, Buffalo Bill Wild West show in particular, to employ Lakota, Arapaho, and Cheyenne indigenous people. They'd bring them in, from the Dakotas and Wyoming, and they would star as extras in the film studio. And as the Buffalo Bill and the Wild West shows started to die down, indigenous people that were these extras stayed here. But the bad thing from that is that's when the film studios started hiring non-indigenous people, in particular to play Indians in the films. But one person in particular who managed to get work was a guy by the name of Luther Standing Bear, and he dropped the name Luther in defiance of his Christianization at the Carlisle boarding school that he graduated from. And Standing Bear actually had the first northern powwow, if you will, here in Los Angeles in Culver City at his home. Back in the early part of the 20th century. I want to say it was around early 1920s, maybe 1923. So, and most of his friends were people that came out here through the Wild West shows in particular. So that would have been, the northern style of singing and dancing back at that time. And so really that northern style kind of begins with that era, the early part of the 20th century here in Los Angeles.
And then people are coming together from all these different tribes, right?
Yeah, people came together. There was a famous Yakima performer, Chief Yalachi. Him and his wife owned the first Indian arts and crafts store in Hollywood Boulevard. And so that became a de facto Indian center for indigenous people that had moved out here, indigenous people that came out from Sherman Indian School for the weekend. That was like the place where people would meet up at. Everybody knew you could go to their store to network, and so that was a major de facto Indian store. And for indigenous people looking for work in the film industry, that's where people went to inform each other of potential jobs in the industry.
Sherman Indian School was in existence at the time.
That would have been Paris, or was it Paris?
Oh, it was?
Yeah, I think Paris was the name back then.
Okay.
Yeah, and then later on it became Sherman Indian School, but it would have been Paris. And that was pretty common. In fact, even when the first Indian Center was established in Los Angeles, folks from Paris and later Sherman knew to go to the Indian Center Incorporated in downtown Los Angeles.
No, I'm going to interrupt.
That's right.
Most people, when they think of urban Indians, right, they're thinking of Indians who are not indigenous to this area.
Right.
So last week, Alan had Georgiana and Craig Torres and Sunil Vitri to really talk about the indigenous roots here. But most people associate urban Indians with a relocation program. So, so John, your aunt and uncle, they came out, worked in the film industry, and
Oh yeah.
and so can you talk a little bit about that?
I think that the they've of course they thought that they could find some work here in the state of California. One of them, my uncle, was from Oklahoma, and of course my aunt is from from the San Carlos Reservation there. So they arrived here, and they sort of got together and started a family. But in the meantime, they began working in the film industry. So they made several films. So that was still something that a lot of Native Americans were thinking about, coming out to to the LA area, to Hollywood, and see if they could get in some kind of work in the film industry. So that's how they became part of that. So
They're John's, your aunt and your uncle, they starred in that film, The Exiles. And if you watch the commentary on The Exiles, it's kind of funny because they didn't live where that took place, and they had an entirely different lifestyle. And yet the commentary is that they're not acting. The commentary is that they even say, "Oh, you can tell she's not acting." But that's how good of an actress she was.
Well, she was a good actor. That she
convinced everybody. It was a documentary.
Portrayed Native Americans that was coming into the cities, and yet they lived out in El Monte area at the time. So so they drive out here to downtown area.
And then some of those first dances were in Elysian Park. Like I know Pat Lopez talks about, being born there in Elysian Park, and different people coming, and so they had all these different tribes coming together to sing over there. I guess Drum and Feather eventually grows out of that, right? So what was that experience with you with Drum and Feather and those?
I came out in I was just young kid there in 1958, and we were visiting in Manhattan Beach at the time, and they said, "Hey, you guys want to go to a powwow?" Sure, because we had powwows in where I come from. Well, actually from Phoenix, Arizona, and they call it the Central Plains, and so theirs was organized already at the time, and of course out here, I think the only Indian organization that was in existence powwow program was the Drum and Feather Club, and they used to have it over at Elysian Park at least once a month. And at the time, we knew of no other organizations or any Indian groups that were putting on powwows except Drum and Feather Club. Those were made up mainly of the Southern Plains, the Kiowas, Comanches, Cheyennes, Arapahoes, and Poncas, Pawnees. So a lot of the eastern tribes, the Cherokees, Choctaws, and so they were coming together there once a month.
So that'd be like John Knife Chief, and were the Yakatunapas out at that point?
The Yakatunapas, they were here. They've been here. John Knife Chief, Chalk Logan, so
Bohey.
There was quite a few of them, and Francis Sweetwater, and of course Lionel Allrunner. He was one of our well-known dancer out here at the time. He had just returned from the Korean War, and of course he would spend a few years back home, and then he decided to come back over here and spend his time in Los Angeles. So that's how.
And his
Maybe.
dad, Jack,
Yeah,
he's
Jack.
the one who taught you to sing.
Oh yeah, he was one of the main singers of organization at the time. So, and that's how some of the
Yeah.
yeah.
I always remember Lionel because he was always in Les and Peter's here and John and I we were all fancy dancers. And I sometimes I emerge just one on occasion, but Les is a traditional dancer now. But Lionel, he would always come over to us and ask us to sing this one song. That'd be in the early '70s, I guess. And he'd always come over and he'd say, "Sing that song for us," or "Sing my song," is what he'd say. "Sing my song, sing my song." And we'd sing the song, and it's a Blackfoot song, I guess. And it come down here, and the Southern people sing it, and we sing it. So, do you want to kick it off?
Right. Good one.
So, around that time in the 1970s, trying to think of what was going on. We were living in Riverside, and then we would drive to powwows here every weekend, right? So there was a powwow at Eagle Rock. There was a powwow at Stanton. There was a powwow at. There was Many Trails powwow, and that's the one we always went to. Our first one, you know. And then there was the one at. There was another one. Wasn't there 4 of them? I think there were 4 of them. But it seemed like every weekend you could go to powwow down there.
Yes,
Yeah. And then the drums, it was LA Northern Drums, so it was Joe Seaboy and Kenny Howard, and who were all the singers on that one?
Pete Looking Horse.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
And Colin Bearstail.
Lloyd Howard.
Lloyd Howard, Colin Bearstail.
Colin Bearstail.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they were really like the solid Northern Drum.
Northern Drum,
And
yeah.
then the Southern Drum was the ones we were talking about, Same, and Mitch Murdoch.
Yeah.
Some of those guys.
Mm-hmm.
And then they had taught, they were starting to teach the Hale family, right?
Mm-hmm.
So a Navajo family that was out here was learning all those ways, and today they sing those songs. In fact, right now, I think both the Ahady, Glenn Ahady, I think, and maybe some of the Hales, as well as a lot of our singers tonight are at a youth workshop teaching kids these songs like this and trying to carry on these traditions. And the people come from all different backgrounds. I grew up in Riverside, and there was a club out there called Chushlakai Indian Club, and there were California Indians, and there was Timothy Redbird was in that, and the Red Doors, and all these different people came together, and then we would learn these songs. And the majority of our drum was Yaqui Indians who got on the bus. Their grandparents got on the bus and went to Sherman. And I don't know if they got on the bus to get an education or they got rounded up as Navajos, but they ended up over there. And so it was the Tovars, you know, and Urban Jumping Eagle. And our little drum group, we sang Lakota songs. We had these 3 Wachaklatas, Charlotte Ortiz, Fire Thunder, her birth name is Standing Buffalo. And then there was Christine Skillins, she's the, and there was another one. There were 2 others. But Irma Bender, remember Irma?
Mm-hmm.
The Red Doors. So there was that drum, and then right around that same time is when John Whitecloud and his boys started a drum.
Mm-hmm.
And that was Whitecloud Singers. And they would come, their Laguna Pueblos came out on the railroad and to Barstow, and then they were taught northern songs. So then there were those 3 drums, and now there's just an explosion of all kinds of drums. But at that time there weren't that many of us, you know. But we moved, so that was that club. Just people went to a garage and sang, and then we'd go to powwows. Everybody carpool to powwows. So our time's almost. Are you serious? Wow. Okay, we're not going to talk a whole lot. So we should sing. We haven't sung a Southern song, so let's go ahead and sing. We're going to sing a song that belongs to the alumni at Cal State Long Beach. So all of us sing and go there or help out, work, advisors there at Cal State Long Beach. And so this song was made by Leonard Cozette Sr. Was given to us, to our alumni in 1984. It talks about the American flag. And it talks about the freedom and peace. But it was given to our alumni. So, but our times are going.
Oh,
normally we'd sing that song 4 times through at least, but but our time's short. But just to tell you, that song was made, and he was a veteran of Korea and also of the Battle of the Bulge, and he made that for the alumni of Indians who graduated from Cal State Long Beach, because it was the oldest in the studies program. Later, Peter shows up, and I think your experience was a little different. Like coming down here and seeing this mixture of all these things.
Yeah, I was born and raised on the reservation. Came down here in '96, so Long Beach State was the first powwow that I actually attended to. And yeah, Craig's right. So the first time I saw gourd dance, I was trying to like. I grew up in the Pacific Northwest, and so going to powwows in Canada and North Dakota, South Dakota, Montana, you don't have the Southern protocol, and so for me watching that, it was my first experience of a powwow here in California, and I was kind of like turned off a little bit, thinking like, well, where's the dancing and singing and stuff? So it was a big change for me coming from the reservation, coming down into LA. And
now you're our staff keeper.
Yeah, so I was bestowed the honor of the keeper of a staff. So it was about 5 years ago when the community of Long Beach came together and decided that it was a time and the place to have a staff that represented the community. So I was bestowed the honor of being the keeper of this staff that was put together by the community in Long Beach, and so that's the role I have now as a.
And Oliver Red Cloud came and put that in our arena.
Yeah.
And we sing a song that we're gonna sing that. We'll sing it out. So and it's a flag song. It's really kind of equivalent to like the national anthem for that Lakota people, but also sung at powwows.
Mm-hmm.
Starting around the 1950s. This version of it was made by Ellis Chips, and so we'll sing this song out. But Oliver wanted us to sing this song in conjunction with that eagle staff, and those feathers come from his Tioshbia, his extended family, and some of our people, both students and advisors.